Ladies and gentlemen, I am back from my little hiatus now. I was camping for the past week, no signal, no Wi-Fi, none of that. And then I took a few days off when I got back to relax. And then, I'm doing the Broncos roster prediction. And I just want to put this out here first things first that I had to make some hard cuts. I thought players would have made the roster and I had to cut them. So I just want to throw that out there that you're probably going to disagree with this, and you might disagree by how many or how many players are we. Sorry, the video got cut off there, but you might disagree by how many players we carry at each position. But it was hard, so obviously this is just my prediction on what I think is going to happen. So yeah, sit back, relax. Make sure if you enjoy to leave a like and subscribe. And before we get started, I want to remind you that Jesus is King. I pray that you give your life to him. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. And I just truly hope that you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior and believe with your whole heart that he died on the cross for your sins. And if you truly do believe that, you'll go to heaven. It's that simple. It's that easy. Of course, the choice is up to you, but as a Christian, I do feel it's important to share this message and get it out there to as many people as possible. Now, let's jump in. And first, I want to show you the upcoming videos that I have. So here are the videos that I already have planned, made, and I just need to record them. I'm going to do a Rockies MLB draft recap about recapping the players that the Rockies drafted in the MLB draft and, giving my thoughts and opinions on it, and we'll talk more about it in that video. We're going to do an Avs free agency recap. I was waiting, we made all our free agent signings, the big moves, and then I was waiting for us to either to sign a center to play on the second line to replace Kadri or to re-sign Kadri. None has happened yet, so if Kadri re-signs later, we'll see, but I'm going to get that free agency recap out as soon as possible. I'm shooting to upload videos every other day. Then I'm going to do my way too early 2023 NFL mock draft. I wanted to drop this shortly after the 2022 NFL draft. However, I was kind of, burned out from the 3 streams that I did for the draft that I took a little break and then it became late. And same thing with the NFL draft grades. Same scenario. I'm going to get those out soon. And then finally, the 5th video that I have planned right now is a Broncos record prediction. So we'll get that out sometime soon, hopefully within the next few weeks. I'm trying to, like I said, upload every other day. Now, let's go ahead and let's jump into the roster predictions. At quarterback, I have obviously Russell Wilson as the starter, and then it was a toss-up between Josh Johnson and Brett Rippon. Now, I really like Brett Rippon. I think he's a very smart quarterback. The intangibles might not be there so much with the arm strength, the accuracy, all that good stuff, but he's very smart, being the nephew of Mark Rippon, obviously former Super Bowl winning quarterback with Washington. But the reason I went with Josh Johnson is obviously we signed him in the offseason, but if something does happen to Russell Wilson, which hopefully it doesn't, but if something does happen, you have Josh Johnson who can come in and they play very similar styles to football. So you don't have to change up your offense a whole lot if Russell Wilson does go down and you need Josh Johnson to play. So a majority of the offense can stay similar. So that's why I have Josh Johnson as the backup, mostly for that reason right there. Moving on to the running backs, I have us carrying 3 on the active roster, those being Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, and Mike Boone. Now, I do expect Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon to get an equal not payload, but snaps load. I think they're going to get fairly even snaps. But while Melvin Gordon was the primary back last year, I have that flip-flopping to Javonte Williams. Obviously, being drafted in the 2nd round last year, I expect Javonte Williams to have a big leap out year and become one of the better backs in the NFL. Now, Melvin Gordon and Javonte will still split the carries, but Javonte will be the primary back if I were to guess. And then Mike Boone, someone who we signed 2 off seasons ago, the first year that George Paton was the general manager, right before the 2021 NFL draft. Mike Boone is kind of like Javonte Williams, a thumper, physical back, not afraid to run through people, break tackles. But, with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, he took a seat as the third string running back. But Mike Boone is still a very solid running back, and I think it's important to have depth at those positions where, running backs are getting hit constantly. They're going to go down with injuries, so it's important to have depth at that position. Next, at wide receiver, I have us carrying 6 wide receivers, them being Courtland Sutton, my personal favorite player in the NFL right now, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Kendall Hinton, and Montrell Washington. Now, we have a fairly deep receiving core, in my opinion, and there's a lot of guys who went undrafted that we signed and we drafted in previous years that I think are very talented and could have made the roster. But I had to narrow it down to 6. Obviously, Cortland Sutton, your big-bodied receiver who's going to go up and high point the ball and come down with the catch. Jerry Jeudy, your route running technician. He is a very versatile route runner. He's got a lot of speed. Needs to work on the drops, but I will say I'm not concerned about that. He did have that one game where he dropped a lot of passes against the Chargers, but he has improved since then. That narrative that Jerry Jeudy can't catch is complete garbage, and people who still run with it either haven't really watched Broncos football and haven't seen Jerry Jeudy play recently after that game, or are just holding on to old narratives. So, sure, there's a couple concentration drops, but it's nothing terrible that people are saying that he can't catch. Tim Patrick's your shirt hand receiver. He's going to catch everything that came near him. I believe 2 seasons ago, he caught every pass that went near him. And then last season, I think he dropped like 1 pass or something like that. Then you have KJ Hamler, the speedster. He finally recovered off of his ACL injury today, and he's been activated. We'll see if he's still fully healthy and still at 100% with that ACL, because they do take some time to heal. So we'll still see if he has that speed right away or if that speed will come later in the season. Then Kendall Hinton obviously played quarterback for us a few seasons ago when all of them went down with COVID and had to miss the game. He's a better receiver than he is quarterback, and he honestly was very solid last year in the snaps that he played, and I think he deserves a chance to be a depth receiver on this team. Maybe not get a whole lot of snaps, but I do think he deserves to be a depth receiver. And then Montrell Washington has had a great connection with Russell Wilson so far in training camp. I do see him mostly being the kicker and punt returner, but I do see him potentially being thrown in some offensive snaps and getting some snaps on the offensive side of the ball. But we'll have to see what happens come the regular season and see what packages we throw out there and how many snaps he will get on the offensive side of the football. Moving on to the tight ends, I have us carrying 4 of them: Albert Okwuegbunam, Greg Dulcich, Eric Tomlinson, and Andrew Beck. I'll start with Andrew Beck here. He plays fullback mostly for the Broncos, but he does play tight end as well. And with the fullback being a dying breed, I wasn't going to make a whole, slide dedicated to Andrew Beck and being a fullback. So I just threw him here with the tight ends because he does play tight end as well as fullback if you need him to. Eric Tomlinson, he's going to mostly be your run blocker. You're going to throw him out there in run formations, all that, because he is a very solid run blocker, but probably shouldn't be used in the pass game as much. We don't have Pat Shurmur anymore, so we're not going to be throwing these guys out there on passing routes who are, not really receiving tight ends, but more blocking tight ends. We had Eric Sauber and all these guys go out for passes when they're primarily blocking tight ends. So hopefully that doesn't happen again this year with obviously Nathaniel Hackett calling the plays and Justin Outman. Then we have Greg Dulcich, who we drafted in the 3rd round, and I think he's a very versatile offensive lineman. Maybe can work on the blocking a little bit, but he's got some decent speed, and he's a vertical threat. Same thing as Albert Okwuegbunam, who every Broncos fan is expecting to take the next step now that Noah Fant's gone and be the primary target. He has had some catch problems in the past as well, but I do think he is going to be able to improve upon that this season. However, his job is not safe. I do think Greg Dulcich will make a solid push to become the Broncos starting tight end, and I think right now it's Albert's job to lose, but don't be surprised if Greg Dulcich comes in there to take it. He is dealing with an injury right now, but, I do think there'll be some heavy competition in the preseason for the tight end 1 job. Then the offensive tackles, I do have 4 on the roster. Obviously, Garrett Bowles, the starting left tackle. Then I have Billy Turner starting at right tackle. He was with the Broncos, then went to the Packers with Nathaniel Hackett, and now is back on the Broncos. I think he's going to be the starting right tackle, with Calvin Anderson and Tom Compton being those veteran backups. Tom Compton more the veteran. He's on the older side, but I do think he's a solid backup. However, I would not feel confident in him starting at right tackle. Calvin Anderson might be able to make a push. He's actually getting a lot of right tackle snaps right now with both Billy Turner and Tom Compton being injured, but I do see him being more of a backup role and, if something happens, him to fill into that offensive tackle role. Next up is the guards, and we got Dalton Reisner, Graham Glasgow, Quinn Miners, and Netani Moody. Reisner, he struggled the past few seasons, I won't lie. But that rookie year of his, he played phenomenally. And I'm hoping he can jump back to that performance he had his rookie year. We'll have to see. But, Dalton Risner, fan favorite, obviously grew up in Wiggins, Colorado, so a lot of Broncos fans love him. Then you got Graham Glasgow, who was one of our bigger free agency signings a couple off seasons ago. He can play guard, he can play center. I don't know if he starts at guard. It's between him and Quinn Miners. I could see Quinn Miners easily starting there, as he played very solid last season. So I think it's going to be an open competition for that right guard spot between Glasgow and Miners. And both of them can play center as well, so they both do have that versatility. And then Netani Moody is a very solid backup guard. I could have seen him going day 2, round 2, round 3, back on 2020. The thing that held him back was his injuries, but he was a very solid guard, and he fell all the way to the 6th round because of those injuries. And if Netani Moody had to fill in to start either for Dalton Risner or Graham Glasgow, if he needed to fill into that starting role, I would feel absolutely confident with him being a starter. Then centers. I have Lloyd Cushenberry being the only real center on this roster. I don't have Luke Wattenberg making it our 5th round pick, our 5th round pick this past draft. I have Quinn Miners being the backup because, it's either Quinn Miners or Graham Glasgow. One of the two will be the backup center. Whichever one doesn't start, I think will be both a backup guard and backup center just in case. So I do have Quinn Miners being here, but this could also easily be Graham Glasgow. Then I just have Jacob Bobenmoyer on here because he's a long snapper, and I wasn't making another slide dedicated to the long snapper. And, they're kind of a center, so I decided to put him here, and obviously highlighting him as the long snapper for the Broncos. Next up, we got left ends, and Shelby Harris is now in Seattle. So I want to see what the Broncos can do with McTelvin Agim. He was a 3rd round pick back in 2020. We haven't seen him play a whole lot, as he hasn't really gotten a whole lot of snaps. Now that Shelby Harris is gone, I think it's his time to prove what he can do on this field. And if that doesn't pan out, I have 4th round pick this past draft, Ioma Uwazurike, as the backup. And I think he's more than capable. So I think it will be a competition. Once again, a lot of competitions, but I think it's good. It's going to elevate the team. Our iron sharpens iron. So I do have McTelvin Agim starting because I want to see what he can do, and I think the Broncos want to see what they have in McTelvin Agim. But Ioma Uwazurike, definitely no one you can push over. He could probably start at left end, but yeah, I think he can be. Honestly, I separated the ends from left end to right end, but I could have just put the ends on one side, and I think Ioma is a potential star. We'll have to see how it plays out in camp and in the preseason game. So maybe I'll update this after the preseason games, although probably not. I'll probably just bring the actual depth chart after the preseason games. But yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. At defensive tackle, I have DJ Jones. A lot of people see him more as this. They could see him at an end, and yeah, he can play in, but I like him as a defensive tackle, being able to plug up the gaps, obviously, at the defensive tackle position, and being able to stop the run. I think that we did struggle against the run just a little bit last season, and I think this and DJ Jones is going to help the Broncos in that run game. Mike Purcell was our best run stopper last year. Obviously, he went to Highlands Ranch High School here in Colorado, but he's 31. He's on the older side. So I have us getting younger, putting DJ Jones here. And I also have Ioma here as the backup defensive tackle because I do think Ioma can play both end and defensive tackle. That's just my opinion, but I do think Ioma has the flexibility to play both. And then at right ends, I have Draymond Jones. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive linemen in the league, and I think a lot of people just don't know about him. And I think that this is the year to prove himself. I mean, he's going to be on a contract year this year. I mean, he was drafted in the 3rd round in 2019. And then, he played 2019, 2020, 2021. And here in 2022 will be his final season on his rookie contract before he looks to be either extended by the Broncos or look for a new home next season. And then I also have a 6th round pick, Matt Henningsen, being the backup here to Draymond Jones. Next up, left outside linebackers. Bradley Chubb, same thing with Draymond Jones. He's in his contract year. This is his 5th year option year that he's playing in. So obviously needs to prove himself. Has dealt with injuries the past few seasons, so I'm not going to blame it on him. Had a fantastic rookie season. just the injuries has really kept him down. I think if he can stay healthy and he can provide a solid season, he'll be back with the Broncos. I don't know what the contract would look like. I think there was one that was posted somewhere on Twitter around the range that he would be looking for, but we never know. So Bradley Chubb in his contract year, I'm expected a big season from him, and typically players in their contract year, they have a very solid season. Then Nick Bonito, a second-round pick, 64th overall out of Oklahoma. I do expect him to be used in substitution packages when you need him to just rush the passer because that's what he specializes at. He is a pure pass rush specialist, and you're going to put him in there to get to the quarterback. His run defending does need some work, but that will develop over time. Jonathan Cooper was very surprising for a 7th-round pick last season, and I think he comes back on the roster more as a depth edge rusher, but I do have him back on the roster. And then Christopher Allen, one of the more touted after undrafted free agents. The Broncos ended up being able to sign him, and I think he could have been drafted if it wasn't for his injuries at Alabama. Obviously, playing at Alabama, he's got a lot of talent, but those injuries really held him back from being drafted. So I do think the Broncos have a gem here in Christopher Allen, who they got as an undrafted free agent. Inside linebackers, I do have us carrying 4, and to me, this is one of the weaker positions, if not the weakest position on the Broncos team. Maybe right tackle, you can throw that out there. But Josie Jewell, more of that thumper, hard-hitting running back, is going to help in the run game, but isn't the best in coverage, so that's where he struggles. Alex Singleton, who we did sign from the Eagles, I'm excited to see what he can do with his first season with the Broncos, so we'll see. We obviously got to see how he plays. Jonas Griffith, I think he played phenomenal in relief last year when a bunch of our linebackers got injured. We traded a 5th-round pick for him to play special teams. He played linebacker, and I was severely impressed by how well he played in those final few games. And then Justin Sternad, our 5th-round pick out of 2020, wasn't super impressed last year. It was his first season because his rookie year he got injured before the season started, or it was either he got injured or he had a surgery to miss the season. Wasn't super impressed, so we'll see if he can turn it around this upcoming season. Next up, right outside linebackers. And for those of you who don't know, our outside linebackers are our edge rushers because we run a 3-4 defense where the outside linebackers are your edge rushers. I have Randy Gregory starting at right outside linebacker opposite Bradley Chubb. He's actually dealing with an injury right now, so hopefully he can get back onto the field because he's the Broncos' biggest free agency signing. I say signing because obviously you have the Russell Wilson trade, but I think everyone's eagerly waiting to see what Randy Gregory looks like in a Broncos uniform and how he performs on the field, but shouldn't rush back his injury. Want him to get fully healthy for the regular season. Then you got Malik Reed behind him, former starter for the Broncos. He played in relief when Vaughn and Bradley Chubb were here. He came into that substitutional role, and he started the last few seasons, and he was exceptional. And I'd like him as a backup, maybe not as a starter, but as a backup on the team. And you have Baron Browning making the transition from inside linebacker to an edge rusher, coming out into the draft last year. That's what I thought Baron Browning excelled at, was rushing the passer. Sort of struggled in coverage and run stopping. So I think putting him in this pass rush role will be very effective and beneficial for his career. Moving in at cornerbacks, I have us keeping 6 cornerbacks on the roster. And they are Patrick Surtain, obviously the number 1 corner. You got Ronald Darby, who played very solid last year. Quan Williams, who got hurt a few days ago, but it looks like he's going to be okay. And I do see him mostly playing in the slot. Michael Ojemudia, who really impressed me at the end of last season. 3rd-round pick in 2020. He had a solid, not great rookie year. Then last year he missed most of the season, but then he came back and played the final few games of the season, and I was really impressed by his play. Damari Mathis, rookie out of Pittsburgh. I was very high on Mathis coming out of Pittsburgh. I think he can play both cornerback and safety. He's kind of like that Kareem Jackson who's going to go around and hit everything, but his coverage is also very solid. And then you have Bless Austin, who the Broncos signed at the offseason as that 6th corner. Now, I do want to preface that this 6th corner spot is open to me. I think there's a couple guys who can make it. Bless Austin is the first one. Obviously, I have him making the roster. I think that Isang Bassi could also have this spot. I think that the third one could be Fionn Hicks, our 7th-round pick. Or the fourth one could be an undrafted free agent that we signed, Jaquan McMillan, who is what I've been hearing impressed in camp as well. So those are the 4 corners that I think make the 6th and final cornerback spot. Next up is strong safeties. I have Caden Stearns being the starter. Now, I know this might upset a lot of people. I could easily see Kareem Jackson starting at strong safety, but with the injuries, and he started to regress last season, sort of, I have him playing more of that nickel role, not really starting at the strong safety. And, Caden Stearns, when he played for Kareem Jackson, he was actually very, very solid. I thought Caden Stearns was excellent. He obviously got 2 picks when he did come in and play for Kareem Jackson. So that's why I have Caden Stearns at the starting strong safety. Now, again, it could not be it might not be the season that Caden Stearns takes over as a starter. Maybe Kareem Jackson stays as the starter. But very soon, I do believe that Caden Stearns will take over as the Broncos starting strong safety. Then free safety, I have Justin Simmons. Obviously, I mean, that's a no-brainer. And then I have DeLorean Turner-Yale backing him up. It's surprising. I like Jamar Johnson, but, he has a healthy scratch before every game last season. So I don't know. He has to have a great camp, I feel like. Haven't seen a whole lot of Jamar Johnson. Only suited up, like I said, for a few games. Otherwise, was a healthy scratch last year. So we'll see. But those are the safeties that I have for the Broncos. Kicker, Brandon McManus, in my opinion, one of the better kickers in the league. I'd say, top 5, top 10 kicker. Very solid, very accurate. Obviously he has an advantage kicking at mile high, but hey, got to take all those advantages that you can. Then punter, I have Sam Martin. Didn't sign any other punters and didn't draft any, and that's fine. I thought Sam Martin has been our best punter for a while. Better than Colby Wadman. You see how well Riley Dixon is doing, and it sucks that he's not on the team. And it's all because of Tom McMahon, our former special teams coordinator, trying to change the way they punt. And I think if he wasn't our special teams coordinator, I think Marquette King could still potentially be our punter. I thought he was solid, but forcing the way a punter changes the way they kick, that's just, I don't know. Then here is my practice squad watch. Now, I know not all of them are going to make the practice squad, and obviously, I don't know if all of them are eligible. I think they're all eligible. I know you can have 2 players on the practice squad who have more than 2 years of NFL experience, but if someone's not legal on here, I'm sorry. I'm just giving you players to watch out for to potentially make the practice squad. This isn't my practice squad prediction because there's 10 spots and there's quite clearly more than 10 players on this list. First of all, Brett Rippon, who we talked about earlier, Jaquan McMillan, who we talked about a little bit earlier, who's pictured here. I think Jaquan McMillan is very, very solid, and I wouldn't be surprised, like I said earlier, if he made the roster. Same thing with Fionn Hicks, our former 7th-round pick. Just don't have the space for him on the roster right now, and with the cornerback depth, I do have him potentially making the practice squad his first year, and I think he will make the practice squad if he doesn't make the active roster. Isang Bassi, I think, could make the practice squad. A lot of teams have signed him I think the Chargers signed him last year at the end of the season. They released him, and then now he's back with the Broncos. So we'll see what Bassi can do. We'll see if he makes maybe the 6th cornerback spot over a Bless Austin. Caden Davis, a wide receiver out of Northwest Missouri State. I think he's been solid. He's been, from the reports I've been hearing, he's been pretty solid in training camp. You have Tyree Cleveland, 7th-round pick out of Florida. Maybe doesn't make the practice squad. Maybe makes the active roster. I don't know, though. I just can't see him over the receivers we have. Seth Williams, our 6th-round pick last year. Jalen Virgil, an undrafted free agent out of Appalachian State. Jamar Johnson I have here. Sebastian Gutierrez, an undrafted free agent that we signed. Luke Wattenberg, our 5th-round pick out of Washington. And Marquise Spencer, our last year's 7th-round pick out of Mississippi State. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below. The support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a video very, very soon.